Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Tuesday, December 9, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. Fallout from the Minnesota fraud scandal spreading like wildfire as a new whistleblower alleges a similar Somali-linked welfare scheme, and this time in Maine. More trouble for Governor Tim Walz, his top lieutenant now accused of failing to hold a number of critical mandatory safety meetings prior to the assassination of state officials, and incoming New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani showing his true nature by ditching his modest Queens apartment for a luxurious crib in Gracie Mansion, and there's a bit more to that story. Also, President Trump taking an enormous step to help struggling U.S. farmers deal with China's trade embargo, and a popular late-night talk show host lands a lucrative contract extension despite raising the ire of 47 himself. All this and a bunch more is coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with this. A former health services contractor in the state of Maine now stepping forward, revealing an alleged fraud scheme in his state's Medicaid program, which he compares directly to the heinous scandal currently engulfing Minnesota. We all know what's happening there. The whistleblower says he knows all about the scam because he worked for nearly 7 years as the former billing guru for the firm that allegedly pulled it off, Gateway Community Services. That company's founder and CEO, a Somali-American businessman who just last year ran for the top post of his home state in Somalia. Now, the whistleblower claims that while he worked for Gateway, the company was responsible for monitoring health staff visits to disabled and low-income clients and then charging taxpayers for those services. However, he says that in reality, a large number of those visits, they never took place at all. Goes on to claim the company intentionally fudged their electronic data, eventually billing Medicaid for work which was never performed, and that the questionable activity skyrocketed exponentially during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to reports between 2019 and 2024, Gateway received nearly $30 million in payments from the state's MaineCare Medicaid program. Meanwhile, a number of furious state Republicans now calling for a thorough investigation into the alleged welfare fraud, and they're accusing Democratic Governor Janet Mills and her administration of an outrageous betrayal of Maine taxpayers by neglecting obvious and credible reports of Somali-linked systemic fraud in Maine's Medicaid system. Well, for his part, the company's founder says he makes no apologies for building a successful business. Says he's given back plenty to his Maine community, that he's proud to support his people back home as well, and that he started the organization in the first place to help immigrants who needed mental health treatment but who didn't really feel safe going anywhere else. Well, final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, the past several days, people have been terribly outraged by all the fraud we've been reporting on down Minnesota way, but fraud knows no zip codes. And I got to say thanks a million to my buddy Mark. He kind of tipped us off to what's reportedly happening right now in the state of Maine. Now, with a caper like this, you got to stop and wonder, where's the system of checks and balances? Whatever happened to government oversight? And if these allegations are in fact legitimate, how is something so egregious actually allowed to happen? Also, Maine may be a bit of a hike from whichever state you call home, but if it can happen there, perhaps it could happen, or maybe is happening right now in your home state as well. You know, bottom line is, look, we're all taxpayers, and if companies, for example, Gateway, are billing the government for services which they're not providing, it's folks like you and I who are footing the bill, and all while a highly vulnerable portion of Maine's residents, they're not getting what they're entitled to. You know, stories like these are unpleasant to bring up, but the more we all know about how certain companies may be defrauding local, county, state, or federal agencies, the more effectively we'll be at holding everybody accountable. And producer Dave, I got to ask you for these deals here. Is this merely allegations, or do you think there's something more credible to this? No formal charges have yet been filed, but in my estimation, this one does not pass the smell test. Where are you at?
Look, this guy says he worked for the company that was allegedly committing the crime, so he clearly knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. This Gateway organization, I've never heard of them until right now. They're over in Maine. They've got some explaining to do the way I see it. And if there's been any wrongdoing, investigators, they'll get to the bottom of it. And we've all got to demand a full accounting of exactly everything that's going on there. We all got to find out more. All Turn our focus now back to Minnesota itself, where the problems for the administration of Governor Tim Walz just keep on growing. And in addition to the backlash he's currently enduring for failing to deal properly with his state's billion-dollar welfare fraud scams, Walz is now facing yet another scandal that's hitting much closer to home. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, we've all heard of her, who's also a Democrat, by the way, currently running for Minnesota's soon-to-be vacant Senate seat, now coming under direct fire for her failure to hold a number of required safety meetings for lawmakers prior to the recent murder of the State House Speaker Melissa Hortman. Now, part of Flanagan's duties, they include chairing a committee on capital area security and calling safety meetings to order 4 times a year. However, according to reports for the 5 years prior to Hortman's murder back in June, Flanagan only held around half of the mandated gatherings, and officials now calling her actions irresponsible. Also confusing and, in fact, shameful. Now, to refresh your memory, Democratic lawmaker Hortman and her husband were fatally gunned down at their suburban home around 6 months ago. The suspect also allegedly shooting and wounding another state senator and his wife at their house as well. And following those incidents, state lawmakers renewed their calls for security meetings, though some would say it's a bit too little and a bit too late. Now, a spokesperson for Governor Walz points out the safety committee has already met a handful of times this year. And they also claim that Lieutenant Governor Flanagan constantly working to ensure public safety for all elected officials, staff, and visitors entering the state capitol. In the meantime, Minnesota's growing fraud scandal, it's threatening to derail Walz's political career, including by jeopardizing his chance to win a 3rd term as governor. It's not going to happen. One of his opponents is now accusing Walz of a monumental cover-up that's worse than Watergate. That's for those of us who recall the Nixon years from way back when. That was a bad time for the country. And not to be outdone, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is weighing in as well. Now, following reports that the Trump administration is looking into possible ties between Somali-linked welfare fraud allegations and a terrorist group affiliated with al-Qaeda, Omar is now claiming that the discovery of any such link would simply be a complete failure of the FBI. I don't know how she gets to that conclusion, Davey. The math doesn't add up. But look, you can't make this stuff up. And final thoughts, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. With each passing day, we're learning more and more about what's happening there in Minnesota. It's beginning to sound like failure after failure. And at the very least, a change in leadership is critical, in my mind, to put that state back on the right path. Now, to begin with, the Lieutenant Governor, that's Peggy Flanagan, works alongside the governor of Minnesota. He's the little-known guy named Tim Walz, a guy whose name has popped up a time or two on this program in the past several days. Dave, does that name ring a bell to you?
Yeah, it's popped up a time or two, Bill.
Yeah, it has. That she failed in her responsibilities to hold those regular safety meetings. That's, in my estimation, inexcusable. But where was the oversight? And perhaps Governor Walz could have nudged her a bit with a reminder to do what she was required to do, as outlined by state law. Now, look, nobody is suggesting that Flanagan is solely responsible for the assassination of State House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, but look, at the very least, she's kind of on the hook for not holding those required safety gatherings. That the Lieutenant Governor now aspires to hold a Senate seat in Minnesota, that's overwhelming. Now, she already proved that she couldn't, or at least wouldn't, live up to her duties in her current position as Lieutenant Governor, and now she wants to climb the ladder to an even loftier position. Look, Minnesota, you're in trouble. Tim Walz, he's your governor. Ilhan Omar is holding court in your 5th district, and now Flanagan wants to join the Senate. It's the perfect storm. Has all the makings of a disaster movie. And producer Davey, I don't think you could write a script as bizarre as what's happening right now in that fabulous state. What are you thinking?
That'd be tough to do, Bill. But, look, those meetings, they're a complete joke to begin with. But in most places, if you don't do your job, usually you get fired. Yeah,
they may be a joke, but they are mandated. There is a law. She didn't follow the law. He didn't do a lot to make her follow that law, so it's an epic failure all the way around, any way you look at it. Look, I'd buy a 1973 Ford Pinto with faded paint and bald tires, just like that one right there, from a used car salesman before I would buy what Minnesota leadership is right now trying to sell, not only to their state's residents, but to all of us all around the country. All right, change things up just a bit and turn our attention now to a major announcement coming out of the Big Apple. Socialist Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, revealing that in just a few weeks, both he and his wife plan to wave goodbye so long to their humble one-bedroom apartment in Queens and move into the city's historic Gracie Mansion. You know, it ain't Wayne Manor in Gotham City, but it ain't half bad. Nice spread. The 34-year-old says he's trading in his rent-controlled dump and making the move into New York's legendary mayoral palace so he can dedicate all of his time and energy into implementing his sweeping affordability agenda, which he claims the city's residents voted for. His spacious new crib, check it out, 10,000 square feet of space, 5 gigantic bedrooms, I would imagine a couple of bathrooms as well, that big grand ballroom, and an amazing view of the East River. Hey, not bad for a socialist. In the meantime, Mamdani swears he'll miss his old home and his Astoria neighborhood as well, which he says will forever live inside him. He's also claiming that wherever he goes, his top priority always be to serve all of the hard-working people who live right there in New York City. Final thoughts, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, congratulations. Yeah, they're in order for New York City's mayor in waiting, that dapper dressed fella right there, about to ditch his tiny rent-stabilized flats in New York for a better crib, a mansion in a superior neighborhood, nifty views, and more rooms than a small hotel. And the only thing better than stabilized rent is no rent. So if my math is correct, that makes Mamdani lower than a low-rent guy. Does that make sense, Davey?
Bill, come on, man.
You know what I meant. He was paying low rent. Now it's going to be no rent. That's why you know what I meant. Look, I like it. I'm going to sign off on it. And just a thought, if he's going to be the mayor of, for, and by the people, then shouldn't all New Yorkers be afforded the same lifestyle that their new comrade has? Hey, if you're a New Yorker, regardless of whether or not you voted for this guy, then here's how I think it should all pan out. If that Zohran fella wants the city to pick up the tab for his housing, then the city should absolutely pay for everyone else's crib as well. Hey, what's fair is fair. What's good for the goose, that's good for the gander. And everyone in that city, they should get what their incoming fearless leader gets, a free crib. Now, producer Dave, I got to tell you, I think I'm on to something. And would you agree that everybody in the Big Apple should get a free mansion?
No, I can't say I agree with you, Bill, but if Mamdani is truly a socialist like he claims to be, you know, he should let a bunch of homeless people move into that mansion with him.
Good point. It's got 10 bedrooms and all those bathrooms in that grand ballroom. You get 50, 60 people in that crib. But anyway, if my idea catches on and takes hold, then maybe the whole country will take note. And I imagine it'll take some time, 6, maybe 8 months tops, but maybe free housing for everybody, and not just in New York, nationwide. Now, some additional headlines we're also keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And up first, President Trump taking action to mitigate the damage possibly caused by China's hostile trade war, and now announcing a $12 billion aid package to help struggling American farmers. Moving along, the Supreme Court overturning a lower court ruling and ordering it to reconsider its position backing New York's current ban on religious exemptions to the state's vaccine mandates. And from down under, Australia enacting the world's first social media ban for users under the age of 16. And among the platforms affected, Facebook, also Instagram, TikTok, everybody's favorites, YouTube, and some others as well. Over to the world of business and a quick glance at a couple of stories that are ruffling feathers in trade, tech, and a lot more. And leading everything off, NVIDIA finally getting approval from the U.S. government to sell their advanced H200 AI computer chips to China. The Fed's reportedly receiving a 25% share in the deal, and experts warning the move could backfire by providing a significant boost to the communist regime's artificial intelligence capabilities. Kind of sounds like we're giving away the store to the enemy. And moving along, a growing number of American diners nationwide, they are reportedly hitting their local happy hours and chowing down on appetizers for dinner as affordability worries continue to grow throughout the country. I know what you're thinking, Davey, and it's true. It's all about cheap eats, all the sliders and the wings at very low prices. And on Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers in the process of introducing a bill which would block the U.S. Treasury Department from minting a series of legendary $1 coins featuring the stunning likeness of President Donald J. Trump. I want one of those dollars, Davey, for Christmas. And a quick gander at a bit of rock and roll showbiz news, and we kick everything off with the lowdown on a controversial late-night talk show host. You know, the one we're talking about. Yeah, ABC announcing they're adding yet another year to Jimmy Kimmel's contract, signing the unfunny comedian to an extension that's going to keep him polluting our airwaves until 2027. The deal amounts to a remarkable comeback for Kimmel, whose career appeared to be in serious jeopardy following his ill-timed comments regarding murdered activist Charlie Kirk, but who returned to the show with much stronger ratings than ever before. Go figure. It's kind of tragic. This Kimmel character says something dopey during his little TV talk show, gets a network timeout, and now he's back on the job with a contract extension. And like 47 recently said, get that bum off the air. And turning now to the silver screen and Hollywood. Superstar Tom Cruise, whose latest breakup with gal pal Ana de Armas, bringing together a couple of Tom Cruise's former wives. Nicole Kidman and Katie Holmes have reportedly been reaching out to de Armas following the recent split and letting the poor kid know they're both firmly on her side. And apparently the older actresses feel somewhat protective of the younger de Armas, baby de Armas, because they've both been through the ringer with Cruise and they know exactly what it feels like when he calls it quits, gets in that airplane of his, takes off and heads for greener pastures. Well, it's good to know that roughly 66% of Tom Cruise's ex-wives have stepped up to offer support to little Anna. Now, as required, Davey, as you know, by podcast law, if you or someone you know has suffered through a relationship with Tom Cruise, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Simply leave us a note here in the comments section, and we'll see if we can find some help for you. All because we care. We're full service. And scooting along to a strange bit of news from the happiest place on earth. The California man says he's just taken spin number 15,000 on a Disney attraction, which is inspired by the animated movie Cars. You like that ride, Dave, or are you more of a fan of the group The Cars?
Well, I think I'd go with the group The Cars, Bill.
I think I'd go for a little of both. Maybe play the group of Cars, the song Drive, while I'm on the Cars ride. Says he's been taking detailed notes about his experience ever since he took his first ride, and that was back in 2012, that he's not sick of it yet, and that he's visited Disneyland so often he considers the work in the Anaheim Park to be his family. And maybe family, but still $150 to get in. No freebies, no nepotism at Disneyland. Hey, look, it's great to have a hobby in life, and this one sounds almost as interesting as making that chocolate pasta in your Ronco pasta machine. Engineer Pranav. Pranav the Magnificent, please. If we can get a Ron Popeil-made machine, that'd be terrific. This is the one Ron Popeil used to yak about in those goofy infomercials way back when.
One machine is going to make 5 different pastas for me?
Oh, you can make thousands of different varieties of pasta with this machine.
Hey, congratulations on this legendary accomplishment, riding a Disney attraction too many times. I suppose it's good to have a mission in life. And now it's time for us to call it a wrap on the Tuesday edition of the Big News Roundup. Now, before we go, as we do each and every day here on the big program, we'd like to share with you a very notable quote and these words of wisdom. Come to us today from Alan Alda, who said, listening is being able to be changed by the other person. Or something like that. I wasn't really listening when he said that all those years ago. Alda, as you might know, is a legendary American actor and filmmaker who's lit up the screen with dozens of great performances, but best known for playing the role of Hawkeye Pierce in the classic TV show MASH. And now time for us to bust on out. But before we do, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast, and we don't ask for much. If you'd simply just hit that subscribe button right over there, that'd be terrific. That way you'll never miss a single episode. And if you don't mind, please tell a friend or a family member, a coworker, anybody you know to subscribe to the channel as well. That would really help. And it's free. And now it looks like our time, it's officially up. So have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. And with that, we're going to dim the lights. We'll fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon.